This is a report from McKinsey Global that by 2025, that's just 8 years from now, there'll be $100 trillion of impact of 12 disruptive innovations, which include Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, energy storage systems, next generation genomics, etc. So the fourth industrial revolution is upon us, and a huge change is taking place. A large number of industries that you see today are going to disappear and be replaced by new areas, new industries, and we in Pakistan have to prepare for ourselves to ride this change and not to get buried under it. And this is an era where natural resources have diminishing importance. It's the quality of human resources, the ability to innovate, the ability to transform those innovations into products and processes. Those are determining progress. So whether it's large countries like China or small countries like Singapore, the story is the same. It's innovation driving economies. Talking of Singapore, the small country, 5.5 million people, population about 1/4 of Karachi. Last year's exports were about 400 billion Singapore dollars, around 330 billion US dollars. So this is quite remarkable what has happened. And when you compare it with a Western country like UK, the red line, this is the GDP per capita for a 50-year period, 1960 to 2010. The red line is UK, the blue line is Singapore, and the light green line is the world average. So as you see, in the mid-1990s, Singapore overtook the United Kingdom and has now a much higher per capita income than UK or Germany or France or Sweden or many other countries, emphasizing the fact that it's knowledge that drives economies. Go to the other extreme, China. Never before in the history of man have so many been transformed so quickly. And this one slide shows the secret of China's success. On the extreme left column, the year China started sending in 1978 large number of students to foreign countries, especially to USA and to Europe, for PhDs, for postdoctoral studies. Starting from 860 students in 1978, the number has grown as you go down the second column. Last year it was about 600,000 students were sent by China. And about 500,000, 500,000 students returned last year after completing their doctorates or postdoctoral training in top universities in USA and Europe. And they are being clustered in centers of excellence in China, and that's the engine that is driving the Chinese economy. The key is this one slide. And many countries in Asia and Europe have started realizing that science and education have to be given the highest priority. For instance, the Korea Minister of Education and Science is now the Deputy Prime Minister of Korea, so that he has the political clout to get funds and to drive the directions of Korea towards a knowledge economy. I happened to meet the President of Austria a few years ago, and he introduced me to his Minister of Science. And he said, this is my Minister of Science. He's also my Minister for Economic Affairs, and he's also the Deputy Prime Minister of Austria. So this is the importance that many countries are giving to science and education. And this, in one slide, tells you the changes that have taken place in world trade in terms of technology. The top two lines are medium and high technology items. In fact, this slide is up to 2004, the two lines have now crossed over, the two top lines, and high-tech items form the major constituent of international trade, followed by medium technology. Whereas natural resources or low technology goods, the green and red lines, have diminishing importance. So the name of the game today, ladies and gentlemen, is high technology. And if Pakistan is to move forward, its single focus needs to be the ability to manufacture and export high technology goods. And that is what I have been driving home to the Prime Minister every time I meet him. Your challenge, sir, is the ability for Pakistan to train the manpower, to create the necessary ecosystem so that we have the ability to manufacture and export high technology goods. That's where the big money lies. Well, a little bit about what we tried to do when I was the chairman of the HEC, and before that the Minister for Information Technology and Telecommunication, as well as of Science and Technology. President Musharraf at the time, I persuaded him to give a 6,000% increase in the development budget for science and technology, and later a 3,500% increase in the development budget of higher education. Where did the money come from? People say, paise nahi hai, we don't have the funds. Funds are always there. It's a question of national priorities. So I told President Musharraf, buy one less F-16 or two less F-16 and that'll provide you enough money for science. That's all it needs. Countries don't become strong by buying these expensive toys, which soon become outdated and you go out buying more. Countries become strong through education, through innovation, and through the ability to innovate and to transform those innovations into products and processes. And this slide was kindly sent to me by Professor Ahil Kamar. Thank you, sir. This slide tells you, is a comparison of what has happened as a result of the reforms that we tried to introduce in the year 2000 to 2008. This is the number of publications per capita, per 10 million population. The green is Pakistan, the blue here is India. So back in 2000, that is on the extreme left, Pakistan had 44 publications per 10 million population versus 172 publications per 10 million population of India. So we were about 400% behind. And then we sent about 11,000 students abroad to top universities, provided them with an ecosystem so that they come back and contribute, and the change began to happen. And as you see, as you move to the right, 2017, we overtook India, and 2018, Pakistan is about 21% ahead of India in terms of research publications per capita. In actual numbers, of course, India is greater, but per capita now we are ahead, whereas we were behind per capita. Last year in 2018, we had about over 20,000 publications, in fact. And so this graph continues to rise sharply. And I'm delighted that COMSATS is a leading institution here, contributing, and it has overtaken many other universities, including Karachi University and Quaid-e-Azam University and others, in terms of research publications. So congratulations, sir, for the wonderful work that you've done. In spite of the limited finances, it's really a tragedy that since 2010 till now, except for one project recently approved by the Knowledge Economy Task Force, they've had no development funding. So but in spite of that, the fact that they have about 1,200 PhDs in the faculty, and they are the engine that drives. Universities are not about beautiful buildings, they're about beautiful minds and providing an ecosystem where they can function. So really, all credit to COMSATS, that in spite of the tremendous pressures and difficulties you have faced, you have continued to contribute to high quality publications and international literature. And this slide was published on 20th December 2018 from Nature. And it shows, this compares the increase in percentage increase in publications 2017 versus 2018. And the country ranked #1 in the world in terms of international publications in impact factor journals was Pakistan. So the Higher Education Commission has had ups and downs during the last decade. There have been difficulties, there have been some good periods, there have been some difficult periods, but in spite of that, the momentum that we created through attracting good people, training them and getting them to contribute has continued. And a number of measures were taken. We introduced the 10-year track system with much higher salaries at that time. At that time, the salary of a professor was about 4 times the salary of a federal minister in the government. 4 times the salary of a federal minister in the government. But it was on contract, with the first evaluation after 3 years and the second after 6 years before tenure was granted. Every student abroad was offered a $100,000 research grant, up to $100,000, for which he or she could apply 165,000 textbooks and 25,000 international journals back in 2004-2005. So access to literature. We were probably the first in the world to have a system of open access instrumentation. You have heard of open access journals. What was open access instrumentation? Basically, it was that every scientist, every researcher would have free access to sophisticated instrumentation. They could get their analysis done in any laboratory of their choice in the country. There would be a charge, but that fee will be paid by the Higher Education Commission. So the scientists would have free access to instrumentation. That meant that the existing equipment could be optimally used. And of course, very importantly, jobs on arrival. So the day they landed, the first year's salary was paid by HEC, and they would have an assistant professor status, because the first 6, 8, 10 months can be a very frustrating period for students completing their doctorate and coming back and then hoping that they'd get a job in the country. So matchmaking was done in advance. These and other measures led during the subsequent 3-4 years to a number of our universities being ranked in the top 300, 400, 500 of the world. NUS was at 370 overall. In natural sciences, it was at 250. Karachi University was 223. UET Lahore and others. And Nature published 4 editorials about the reforms that I had introduced in Pakistan, that we had introduced in Pakistan. And then there were comprehensive, and these were regarded as a model for other developing countries to follow. And there were comprehensive reports by the World Bank, USAID, British Council. And the PhD output shot up, and the chairman of the UN Commission on Science, Technology and Development, Professor Michael Rode from Austria, at that time wrote that in no other country has the higher education sector seen such spectacular positive developments as that in Pakistan. More recently, in 2016, Thomson Reuters came out with a very interesting paper entitled Another Brick in the Wall, BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India and China. And it's stated in that paper that Pakistan has emerged as the country with the highest percentage of highly cited papers. So the emphasis was on quality, not just numbers, which is borne out by this report. In fact, there is a lobby which says that the emphasis in those years were just numbers and not quality. That's absolute nonsense. There are international reports which prove otherwise. India became quite concerned at what was going on, and there was a detailed presentation to the Indian Prime Minister on 22nd July 2006 about what we were doing in Pakistan. And this was published in the Hindustan Times on 23rd July, heading Pak Threat to Indian Science. India then decided after that to close down its UGC, and initially the cabinet approved the formation of an organization called NCHR, National Commission for Higher Education and Research. But then that went into some problems. More recently, about 1.5 years ago, they have decided to form UGCI, so the HECI, Higher Education Commission of India, and that's still in the process of approval, so they are still having some issues there. But since this is a conference about information technology, let me just give you a brief glimpse of what we try to do. A lot of excellent work was done by the whole team. Dr. Suhail Naqvi was part of who later became the Executive Director of the Higher Education Commission, was a part of my team, and I was the Minister for IT, as was Mr. Salman Ansari. He was an advisor, telecom, and a whole team of other people. And I took over as the Federal Minister responsible in March 2000, and within 4.5 months, by August 2000, we had Pakistan's first national IT policy prepared, critically looked at by groups both in Pakistan and abroad, and approved by the cabinet. And at that time, a 15-year tax holiday was given for the IT industry, which then expired in 2016 and was renewed for another 3 years and has now been again renewed. And significant funding was provided to many institutions, including endowments which were created at that time. And we placed Pakistan's first satellite in space, ParkSat-1. We had 5 slots. We had lost 4 of them because of government lethargy. There was 1 left, and President Musharraf asked me if he could help. And we managed to place this satellite, which was a huge satellite, which worked for about 10 or 15 years before it was replaced. There was a strong collaboration with Intel at the time. I met the CEO of Intel at a conference in Hong Kong, and Intel then helped to train 25,000 school teachers in 70 districts. And kiosks were placed at all the airports by Intel. In fact, not a penny of the government was spent. And the mobile telephony, we had only a couple of 100,000 mobile telephones in 2001 and 2002. People were reluctant to have mobile phones to pay for receiving calls. So the common man was reluctant कि call वो कर रहा है, पैसे मेरी जेब से जा रहे हैं, मुझे क्या फ़ायदा, मैं ऐसा फ़ोन क्यों रखूँ? So we switched that. We said the calling party should pay and not the receiving party. And that led to an explosive growth in mobile telephony, which became the hottest sector, in fact, of the economy. And then there was a successful deregulation policy, and the satellite I've already talked about. We set up the virtual university at that time, and that has expanded considerably since then. And internet was expanded from 29 cities to over 2,000 towns, cities, and villages. So this was just a 2.5 period I'm talking about. All this was done. The cost of bandwidth were $87,000, a ridiculous $87,000 for an even line. They were brought down sharply, initially to $6,000 and to $3,000, $800, and then to less than $100 for an even line. And the Pakistan Educational Research Network was set up, which provided free access to the digital library that I've just mentioned. And very interestingly, and since there are many foreign professors here also, we established an excellent video conferencing facility in all the universities during those days. And that allows a lecture to be delivered in any one university to be listened to live and interactively across the country. So there are regular lectures being delivered from abroad. About an average 2 to 3 lectures per day are being delivered. We have had about 4,000 lectures delivered in the last 5 years, and these are placed on the web. So those of you who would like to, from abroad, give talks to Pakistani students, I'm coordinating this effort, and we would be happy to help because there is a focal point in every university, and the students and faculty are informed 1 month in advance who is going to talk on what, on which subject, so that they can participate. So this is an excellent facility which needs to be fully utilized. Let me move away now a little bit from what we have been doing to this wondrous world of discovery. Since you are in the IT area, artificial intelligence. Well, as many of you would know, IBM came forward some years ago with 2 programs. One is in medicine, the other is in law. And so you can get advice through IBM's Watson, medical advice and legal advice at a fraction of the cost of what it would take to go to doctors. So this is certainly coming in a big way. It has already been in practice for the last 3 years. Smart bullets are being used. New materials have been developed, so the Harry Potter's disappearing cloak is a reality. If I was to cover Professor Rahil Kamar with a cloak made out of metamaterials, you, sir, would become invisible, because the light would hit you and go around you, and you'd see an empty chair sitting there. So contaminated chips are there now, and so many countries are worried. They're buying these expensive F-16s, etc., which can be disabled at just one signal externally. So you may have a war taking place, and just one signal will disable a plane worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Crime genes. It has been found that many criminals have certain genes, and these people then have criminal tendencies. So next time you go for a job, you may find that they will analyze your blood and say, oh, this guy has criminal tendencies, so better not keep him. So this is already there, the monoamine oxidase gene. In Finland, at the Shanghai Jiatong University, since genetics also affects your facial features, so they had a very interesting program to identify criminals from their facial features. And so out of images of 1,856 Chinese men, the computer could predict with about 90% accuracy that this gentleman had criminal tendencies. So not only from the blood, but just the facial features also, which is, I find it very surprising. Bioelectronic hybrid systems are being developed with brain implants, prosthetics, bionic eyes, etc. So all under rapid development. Quantum computing is coming in, not working on the binary systems that you are familiar with in standard computers, but on qubits. So parallel processing, hundreds of millions of times faster than normal computers, and some of the prototypes are already installed and functional. D-Wave is one of them, installed in Canada. The biology-computer interface is actually a fascinating area. Hats have been developed, devices which you can wear on your head, which can read your thoughts and connect it to a small computer. In a car, for instance, you can drive a car just by thought control, just by sensing the encephalographic changes and the blood pressure changes. The blind are today able to see with their tongue. Actually, you see with your brain. Eyes are only a mechanism for image transfer. So these electronic lollipops have been developed. This is a company called YCAB in Wisconsin, and this lady has a little camera on her glasses, and it takes in the optical signals, which are converted into electrical signals, and in her hand is a device which has 400 sensors. The moment she puts the device on her tongue, partial eyesight is restored immediately. These are commercially available devices. This lady is in China. She doesn't know a word of Chinese. She's talking to a Chinese gentleman who doesn't know a word of English. Real-time translation devices are here. She has a little device in her ear. She speaks in English. He hears in Chinese. He has a similar device, and vice versa. These cyborg mosquitoes and beetles have been developed, which are fitted with sound systems, electronic sound systems, cameras, and they can be made to sit remotely controlled, sit on the walls of your army chief or your president or your prime minister, and transfer all the information to the embassy in Washington. So the French ambassador should be very careful, and that if you have somewhere a little fly coming in, it might be a cyborg beetle. So these are developed by a US organization called DARPA, and they are actually stealth fitted, so very difficult to detect. In the materials engineering, I have already talked about metamaterials. There are intelligent materials that remember their shape, so you may be driving a car which has a little accident, but it will restore itself without going to a denter. Self-healing materials are here, which are special sandwich materials. A lot that I'm talking about is just chemistry, and that's my subject. I have my background. So these are amazing materials. Graphene, two scientists at Manchester shared the Nobel Prize for development of graphene, 200 times stronger than steel, pure carbon with a structure, beehive-like structure. Nanotechnology has come in a big way. In my center in Karachi, we have developed the first national facility, large facility for nanotechnology research. And nanotechnology is being used for all sorts of purposes, ranging from bulletproof paper for filters for drinking water, nanopharmaceuticals, nanoelectronics, and others. Electronic textiles are here, which change their color so the husbands can be pleased. They only buy one dress, and then that dress has thousands of designs concealed, and the wife just pushes a button and the design changes in the fraction of a second. Ebb textiles are here, which change their color slowly. So your wife goes to a party wearing a maroon dress and comes back wearing a green one because the color is changed over the next 2 or 3 hours. Chromophores. 3D printing, houses can be printed in 24 hours, large printing machines, and this is finding wide applications. The first jet engine, so we were talking about alloys being used for 3D printing just now. So the world's first jet engine printed by 3D printing at Monash University, Australia. A field close to my heart, neuroscience. That's something that we have been working on for the last decade or so. 100 billion neurons in your brain, each talking to 10,000 other neurons. So 100 billion times 10,000 synaptic connections. Arguably the most complex object of our universe is our own brain. So what is the basis of memory? How do you think? And what I'm talking about is not so far from computer science. The brain has a different way of functioning than what the binary system that exists in computer science. So what is the basis for memory storage? The chemistry of memory. Thoughts are not abstract. Thoughts are made of atoms and molecules. Which atoms? Which molecules? What is thought? So we have published many papers in this field. That's a separate lecture altogether. What we proposed was that glycoproteins present in the hypothalamus of the human brain, they're normally glycoproteins are various sugars attached to a protein backbone, glucose, arabinose, fructose, xylose, and they're bristling with hydroxyl groups. So there is so think of a fur, the velvet. And so it's a kind of a natural velvet that nature has made. And this velvet can be embossed through patterns. And this process of embossing could take place through hydrogen bonding. So I'm just trying to simplify something which is rather complicated. So hydrogen bonding can lead to the freezing of the conformational mobility, leading to pattern formation. And the breakage of these bonds, which is forgetting, could be where these patterns will then disappear. So a lot of work has been done in this direction. So the logical process, that what is logic then, could be an overlay of these patterns. Patterns responsible where information regarding color or fragrance or shape or other information is stored. So an overlay of these patterns could be the basis for logical processes. And so this took us into looking at some of the neurodegenerative diseases like epilepsy and Parkinson's and other diseases. And to cut a long story short, looking at epilepsy to start with, there is no cure for epilepsy. The drugs available today for epilepsy are just as good or as bad as they were 150 years ago. So looking at some medicinal plants, which has been our forte, we have isolated some exciting compounds, which are quite simple compounds in structure. The E and Z isoxylatones, These have been patented in the United States. They passed through phase 1 clinical trials and are into phase 2. Extremely potent substances, and this work was done through using what we have in our institute, a patch clamp facility, where we can excite individual neurons with very weak currents of 10 to the minus 12th of an ampere and simulate epileptic-like behavior in neurons in the lab, and then see whether the firing, the uncontrolled firing of the neurons can be suppressed using plant extracts or pure compounds. And we have published many reviews in this area. Those who are interested will be happy to discuss with you. We have also created, and since all of us are connected with education here, we have created an integrated version of MOOCs, massive open online courses. So this contains school level, college level, and university level courses, and the courses available from Stanford, MIT, University of California, and others, all in one platform. And we have built in a meta search engine, and this is being constantly upgraded. So this is free, no registration, no payment. The website address is LEJ4Learning, learning.com.pk. So this can provide you with a lot of excellent material. School level courses are from the Khan Academy. Several thousand courses are dubbed in Urdu also. So from class 5 onwards. So this could be a huge resource. So this is what we are now advocating, and I know that COMSATS has already introduced flipped learning into its system, as have we in our center, and this should be done more widely so that we benefit not only from our teachers, but from the best teachers in the world. I've also created some books which are largely without text. This was a book on organic chemistry. This is a video book, and Professor Jean-Marie Lane, the Nobel laureate from France, who was a good friend of mine, was very excited and wrote the foreword to it. And this contains 300 video links. So you just click and then start learning from the best in the world. We've also created a similar book for molecular biology, and I suggest that many of you would like to work on this and create video books so that everything is arranged in a very, you select the best lectures, put them in order of the curriculum and the syllabus that is being used, and then make them available to the students, and then the students and the faculty should study these lectures in advance, and much of the classroom time should then be used for discussions, flipped learning. In the future, well, as was just mentioned, I am now part of 3 national task forces. I am the chairman of the PM Task Force on Science and Technology. More importantly, I am part of the PM's task force on knowledge economy. The Prime Minister himself chairs it. I am the vice chairman, and there are half a dozen federal ministers as members of this task force. And under that, 162 billion rupees worth of projects are presently under approval in the field of agriculture, IT, artificial intelligence, the PM University that is being built in Islamabad behind the PM House, and a whole range of programs are underway. As a result of these initiatives, the budget of the Ministry of Science and Technology in this year alone has increased by 600% because of these projects, and you see also a sharp increase in the budget for the Ministry of IT and Telecom, as well as many other ministries. We are trying to set new strategic directions for Pakistan. Pakistan's real wealth lies in the 100 million or so that we have below the age of 25. 100 million. That's a very large number of young people. Can we unleash the creative potential that lies therein through quality education and through an ecosystem that would unleash that potential? And so moving from the low value-added agricultural economy that Pakistan is trapped in to a knowledge economy for high-tech manufacture. So our priorities are education, agriculture, minerals, IT-related areas which I mentioned, and other emerging technologies. And blended learning I've already mentioned. Just one example before I close. The Knowledge Economy Task Force was formed at the end of January this year. So it's been only 10 months. One of the first projects that I took up under the task force was, can we use the present technologies to increase the tax net. So we worked very closely with NADRA, developed mathematical algorithms, and had FBR data transferred to NADRA. This was done in April and May this year. And as a result of that, we established an interactive portal which had 118 million CNIC holders. And as a result of that, we had a large number of tax declarations because each person could see the kind of data that we had about him or her. So they could go to their own portal and say, okay, the government has this, so we can't hide it. Let's declare it, otherwise we get into trouble. So the bottom line, we had the total assets declared moved sharply up to rupees 3 trillion. And actual taxes, the additional taxes paid was 65 billion rupees as a result of this one project of the knowledge economy with zero expenditure on the part of the government. All we did was just worked very closely to identify the non-tax filers or low tax filers and took one cut, and this was just from the federal government. We are now moving into second phase, working with the provinces to look at provincial data and seeing. So this is the power of information technology today. It can impact everyone, and one of the biggest problems that Pakistan has is that we have very few people paying taxes, and we have to have transparency coming in. So, as I said, I'm an organic chemist. This is the HEJ Research Institute of Chemistry. There are about 600 students doing PhD there. There are 17 buildings on 100 acres of land. Organic chemistry, biochemistry, pharmacology, genomics, molecular medicine, nanotechnology, neuroscience. So it's actually quite a complex. We have just started setting up the virology center. We have the largest entrepreneurship facility in the country, where a large number of companies are already operating to support startup operations. That's a center that I donated from my own savings, named after my father, which has got state-of-the-art gene sequencing facilities. And our center has won many awards and prizes, including 2 Fellows of Royal Society, 1 UNESCO Science Prize, about 35 or 40 civil awards and other prizes. We have 13 superconducting nuclear magnetic resonance spectrometers ranging from 300 megahertz to 800 megahertz for some of our structural biology work, and about 20 odd mass spectrometers, X-ray crystallographic systems, pharmacology, pilot plant equipment. And in many of these programs, China is a great partner. We are now setting up 20 centers of excellence with China across the country. And this is a center was recently named after me in the largest university in Hunan, China. And this is a photograph of that function that was held in 24th of October. So I'll stop here with thanks. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them. Thank you. So feel free to ask whatever you want.
So if I may,
Yes, sir.
Mashallah, we are doing a lot of good things in the knowledge economy and all that, and hopefully, we'll be able to, the nation will be able to benefit from these initiatives. But sir, there's very little information out in the society. People don't know the initiatives that you have been taking. I think there is a need really to go on the television and go on other media and everything and explain to people where we're going with these initiatives, because it creates a lot of joy and goodwill in the society that such great initiatives are being undertaken. So I would really request you to come on different programs and explain to the people these initiatives and how it will impact, especially their lives and everything.
Yeah, I completely agree. There is need for greater awareness of what we are trying to do. And yes, I admit we have been weak in that area. We scientists are trained to work quietly and do our bit and not to do much publicity. But you're right, there needs to be also awareness of what is happening.
Okay, sir. I have a question.
D.
Yeah, please.
D.
Sir, you have been talking about the ecosystem of every time you're talking about ecosystem. Back in when you were the chairman of IGC, you started the initiative of sending 2 million people abroad for the PhD. At that time, some people objected on your vision or your vision that you are sending 2 million people outside for PhD, but what would they do when they return? So, are you still convinced about your vision or your strategy of people sending abroad and getting that productivity out?
Yes, absolutely. You see, we had a 97.5% return rate for the people that we sent abroad, and 100% absorption of the people that were coming back. So it was not just sending abroad. We put a lot of emphasis on their absorption, on providing them with research funding, and making sure that they were productively employed. So it was a complete system, not just sending them abroad, letting them get a doctorate. We have about 1.5 million students in the higher education sector. We have only about 10 or 12,000 PhDs. So the ratio is about 130 students for one PhD level faculty, or 140 students. The ratio should be 20:1. So we need to have 40 or 50,000 additional PhDs as faculty members today, not to talk about 10 years down the road. And I think it's a pity that in the last 10 or 15 years, the scholarship programs went down drastically. And so while we have had a mushrooming of universities and expansion of campuses, the real element, the most important element, faculty, is largely missing. Qualified faculty is missing. So I think we need to restart a huge scholarship program again for Pakistan, but again making sure that those who come back are productively employed and have the necessary grants, etc., so that they can function properly. So I'm absolutely convinced that what we tried to do during those days was the right way, and that should be what should be done today also.
Dr. Andrews from University of Moot. Sir, I would like to have your take on this point that recently we have been listening to this opinion from the different quarters that due to the establishment of this task force on science and technology and the additional budgets which has been granted to this task force and to the Ministry of Science and Technology, it is putting kind of tax on SEC that is affecting the ongoing projects for the different universities in the country. So I would like to hear your opinion on this.
In fact, the truth is the opposite. Just since this is a COMSATS conference, COMSATS had not received any funding from anywhere since 2010, development funding. It is due to this task force that a project of 840 million rupees was recently approved for biomedical appliances and development. So actually the universities after many years are benefiting from what the task force is doing. So it is a wrong perception which is being perpetuated.
This is Dr. Atta-ur-Rehman, Professor at the University of Science and Technology, Islamabad. My concern is that, as you know, there are the Council of Pharmacy, Pakistan Engineering Council, Pakistan Medical and Dental Association like that. But unfortunately, we don't have any biological or life sciences society. That is why hundreds PhDs of the biological sciences graduate and postgraduate, they don't have job. Because everywhere when you have the academician bodies like the computer and others, they are listening to different universities, they are pressing them about the...
I would agree with that. It's extremely important that we strengthen our biological sciences, and also in many other areas you have a similar situation. And so we need to give specific support to biology because of its impact on society. So I totally agree with you. There's a need for doing that. As far as forming a society is concerned, I think that's something that the scientists themselves have to initiate, form a society and then have it and draw the attention of the government in the areas that we need to focus upon. Yes, I completely agree with you.
Sir, my name is आपने सर बताया कि जहाँ पर हम लोग नेशनली HEC, Ministry of Science and Technology, जिन areas में focus कर रहे हैं. If you look at countries like South Korea, Singapore, Vietnam, they have focused on one, perhaps two technologies in which they build up the entrepreneurship culture as well. Don't you think we as a nation should focus on perhaps one, two, maybe three technologies in which to focus and take the country forward?
Yeah, that is exactly what our task force is doing. The three priority areas that we have identified, coupled to, of course, education, which is across the board. The three priority areas, one is IT and other emerging technologies. The second is minerals. The third is high value added agriculture. These are the three key areas that we are focusing upon. And then we need to prepare our universities, etc., in those areas. So we are actually doing what you are suggesting, to focus, not to try too many things, but focus on certain critically important technologies.
I'm Dr. from COMSTECH University, Islamabad, Hyderabad campus. So, sir, thank you for your briefing. So, but I have the two things which I expect from your talk. The first one is that we need to make the international collaborations between the universities of the different countries. For instance, we can collaborate with the Chinese universities, similarly in the Swedish universities, because whenever we visited to the many countries, we saw that there are many places where the people want to connect with us, like in South Africa universities and various others, so we can reconnect, and this is an important column that we can address such kind of linkages. And the second thing is that our universities and our academia will be connected with the industry as well, because there is a big flow in the industry, because whenever we spend our life in the European countries, we saw that their industries and their education systems are connected to each other. But in our countries, it's a big flow because our industries are in the one direction, our education system, so it's important that we need to be connected to each other. Thank you very much.
Yeah, linkages, absolutely. And for instance, when I was the chairman HEC, we had about 100 linkages established during those times with British universities and many other universities, and that should be continued. University-industry interaction, again, extremely important, and Professor Rahil Kamar would bear me out that this is one of the areas that we have been emphasizing in our Science and Technology Task Force, to develop mechanisms through which we can strengthen these linkages, to have funding available, and we are actually in the process of doing that right now under the S&T Task Force. I think I'll take one more question because I don't want to take any more of your time. We have to stop. So, Ji. Sure. Right. Wants me to say something in Urdu for the media, so due apologies who don't understand me. आज की दुनिया इल्म की दुनिया है, और वो ममालिक जिन्होंने समझ लिया है कि उनकी सबसे कीमती दौलत उनकी अफरादी क़ुव्वत है, वही तेज़ी से आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। तो इस दौर में अगर पाकिस्तान को तरक्की करनी है तो हमें ये समझना होगा कि तालीम, साइंस, टेक्नोलॉजी और जिद्दत तराज़ी, इनोवेशन, इसके ऊपर हम सबसे ज़्यादा ज़ोर देना है। तो प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने जो टास्क फोर्सेस बनाए हैं, जिसमें नॉलेज इकॉनमी टास्क फोर्स एक बहुत अहम टास्क फोर्स है, जिसके प्राइम मिनिस्टर खुद चेयरमैन हैं और मैं वाइस चेयरमैन हूँ, उसमें 6 फेडरल मिनिस्टर्स भी हैं। हमने ये तय किया है कि हम तालीम पर और साइंस और टेक्नोलॉजी के कुछ ऐसे एरियाज़ जैसे कि आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस है, IoT है, और दूसरे IT रिलेटेड एरियाज़ हैं, मादनियात है, मिनरल्स का पूरा एरिया है, और फिर ज़राअत, लेकिन हाई वैल्यू एडेड एग्रीकल्चर, मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजी को इस्तेमाल करके तो ज़राअत के ज़रिए गुर्बत दूर हो सकती है। इन फील्ड में हम जो है ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा तवज्जो दें, और उसके नतीजे में बहुत सारे प्रोग्राम्स इस वक्त मंजूर हो रहे हैं। कोई 162 अरब रुपए के प्रोजेक्ट्स इस वक्त मंजूर हो रहे हैं, जिसमें 13.5 अरब रुपए इस साल के लिए रखे गए हैं। तो एक पहली दफ़ा है मुल्क की तारीख़ में कि हम एक नॉलेज इकॉनमी, एक इल्म पर मबनी मईशत की तरफ देख रहे हैं और बात कर रहे हैं, ताकि पाकिस्तान जो गुरबत के भंवर में फंसा हुआ है उससे निकल कर हम भी मगरबी ममालिक से मुख्तलिफ फील्ड में मुकाबला कर सकें। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
get into a tiff with us based upon a fake news which had recently come out in the medium, in the social media. And I asked him that, have you really investigated if it is real or not? So we sort of seem to be reactive now. We are in a reactive phase rather than really investigating. Whenever I get any message from anybody, I first Google it to see if it is accurate or not. Most of the time it is fake. So I really don't forward things which are fake. We really need to work on that also and try to ensure that we are not perpetuating a lie. Anyway, exciting times to be living in. Most of the technologies will change the way we do anything. You know, Dr. Saab mentioned the Watson experience, that will change law completely. I think, the courtroom rulings and everything will go away. There would be a lot more online mediation and online courtrooms. And ultimately, lawyers will have to adapt to these new technologies, artificial intelligence and coding. If they don't, they'll become redundant in society. So most of us, we have to now go into an adaptive phase of adopting new technology. So thank you all for coming to this.